Gukesh defeated Carlsen 4 times, and in each of those games he used the same tricky tactic. First time it happened back in 2022. Gukesh is playing white, Carlsen is playing black, and throughout the game Carlsen outplayed Gukesh and he was winning. He's got 2 extra pawns, plus this pawn on b2 is also hanging, this pawn on e6 is kind of weak. It seems that it's not for black to just trade off a little bit of pieces and he'll get an easily winning endgame. However, black's last move, rook to e8, was a very unobvious blunder, and Gukesh played queen b6, which is a super cool move even though it's totally unobvious at first. Here's the deal, the threat is knight d3, and after virtually any move of black, Carlsen's worst nightmare comes true. This queen is trapped right in the middle of the board. It's actually a fork, but it doesn't even matter, because the queen is trapped, which is very rare to trap a queen right in the middle of the board. Let's take that back. Carlsen noticed that, and he moved the knight right here, providing some breathing space for the queen. However, Gukesh pulled off another knight trick. This time as rook takes e7, sacrificing the rook and winning a piece because black can't accept it due to this quick checkmate. Next game, Gukesh enjoys his extra queen, however it's still not easy for black to make progress. White's passed pawn are very advanced, plus this pawn is guarded by the knight, therefore this whole structure is rock solid. However, Carlsen probably recalled how effective knight tricks are and decided to pull it off himself. He sacrificed this pawn by playing pawn e7 check. He wanted to tempt Gukesh to capture this juicy little pawn on e7, and in that case he would fail either to this fork, or if Gukesh used the queen, that would fail to this knight fork just as well. However, on this day, it was actually Gukesh's birthday, and he decided to make himself a great birthday gift by defeating Magnus Carlsen. By the way, if you want to reduce the quantity of blunders significantly in your own games, there are a few simple ways to do that. I've got a free masterclass about that, you can check it out later by clicking the link below. The next game is from 2024, Gukesh is playing white and it looks like he's going down. This pawn on e6 has been attacked twice, but if this pawn falls, then this knight on d7 is also going to be in danger. Moreover, it's not just that knight, because if the knight is captured, it's going to happen with this x-ray to the king and the other knight on d2. For example, if Gukesh played something like this, trying to hold on to this pawn, Carlsen would take it anyway, and black is winning the game. Now indeed, this knight is loose, black is going to capture it with all these threats, and black is just winning. But all of a sudden, Gukesh said, good night. As always, he bets on his favorite piece. Rook d5, he's not even trying to defend this pawn, and how about black just capturing it with this double attack? Well, there is a double attack to the double attack. There's knight f6, which comes with this check, and a discarded attack of the rook, therefore black cannot do that. And this trick allowed Gukesh to seize the initiative, and although black can do something to prevent this trick, but then there is knight to e5, which also comes with a fork to the rook and the bishop. This pawn on b5 is hanging, so as the knight right here on b2, and that's how Gukesh basically took over. However, I still gotta show you the final position. Here's the position when Carlsen resigned. Gukesh literally knifed the goat. Remember the previous game when Gukesh won thanks to that discover check tactic? And this time Carlsen, who's playing black, decided that finally it is his time to get his revenge. He played rook f8, attacking the knight, hoping for the knight to go away somewhere, let's say somewhere here, and he prepared exactly that discovered attack thing. Knight h5 comes with a check, and even though the knight can't be captured, it means black is gonna grab the rook and win the game. That is what he was hoping for. However, Gukesh found that and tossed in this in-between check, rook f2. Carlsen moved his king to e1, and only now Gukesh played knight to d7 with this double attack. And after some calculation, Carlsen found what he thought is a winning combination. So first off, how about knight h5? In this position, it's not as strong, because in the next move, white has to accept it, now black can win the rook. And that does not come with a check, compared to the previous variation when the king was still on e2. And what happens right now is white's got this knight takes e5 brilliant move, threatening this fork, but if the rook goes away, then these pawns are getting really dangerous and Gukesh would win the game. That's why Carlsen decided to utilize the same idea but slightly differently. He delivered this check from e2, and this also opens up the same discovered attack to white's rook on f2. Therefore, white has to take the knight with a check, and then grab this rook on f8. Even though right now, at the moment, white is up a knight, but Carlsen was hoping that this pawn is going to be promoted and he'd win the game. Of course, I don't know exactly what he calculated, but I'm pretty sure that he calculated this line, which seems to be most natural. If let's say white captures this pawn, this one goes forward. Interesting that this pawn takes away this square, and therefore the knight cannot go there. But if knight captures here, pawn goes forward, pawn gets promoted, and Carlsen would win the game. Gukesh, however, changed the trajectory of his knight a little bit, and at this point Carlsen realized that it is that nightmare once again. Yes, he can get his extra queen, but not for too long. Carlsen was probably thinking, again, what the fork? Bonk. Carlsen was still resourceful. He tried to take away that central square from the knight, still threatening to push his pawn forward. However, Gukesh just reroutes the knight to a different square, and now Carlsen starts pushing the pawn. Gukesh does the same, but Gukesh is up a knight. But Carlsen still does not give up. He tries to push the other pawn forward, but Gukesh keeps horsing around and casually steals another victory. And if you want to know Fisher's simple rules to prevent 90% of your chess mistakes, check out that video right there.